And even though we're on Zoom, I feel like I get to know you all a little bit. As you're aware, the Soul Matters theme for this month is celebrating blessings. And so I wonder, when you hear the word blessing, what immediately comes to your mind? How about when I say, you are a blessing to the world? How do you feel about that statement? Do you believe it? You are a blessing to the world. It is true. As I pondered the topic for this month, it seemed important to me to remind you of that truth, that you are a blessing to the world. And that is something to celebrate. To remind you at this time when you may be feeling like I do, worn down, worried, and weary from witnessing the brutality in so many spaces. The brutality of a relentless virus, of illnesses, natural disasters, wars, corporate greed, and the brutality of people. People behaving brutally toward other people. That may be the thing that I find has exhausted and challenged me the most. It challenges me to remember the inherent worth and dignity of every person, or first principle. Even as random acts of violence occur across the nation, as the organized violence of war occur, even as children are murdered, we affirm that every person has worth and dignity, not some people, all people. When I asked you what comes to mind when I say the word blessing, you may have noticed, as I did, that the word blessing brings up all kinds of thoughts and feelings, sometimes contradictory. Blessing is a flexible and a powerful word, both a noun and a verb, depending on how we use it. For example, I'm blessed, I blessed them, or that is a blessing. Commonly, blessing refers to asking for and/or receiving God's care and protection. Obviously, this is a problematic definition for some in its use of the word God, as well as for those of us who believe that God does not favor some over others. The use of blessing as asking for God's favor may also be used in unhelpful ways, such as the syrupy, sweet, and superficial exclamations we hear, or it may be even used in harmful ways. By proclaiming that one should count your blessings or feel blessed because it could have been so much worse, which discounts the very real, legitimate feelings of pain, anger, and hurt. Other definitions of blessing rely less on the request for an intervention of God. Simply, a blessing is something that is beneficial. A blessing is something that I am grateful for. Something I am grateful for, such as you are a blessing to me. Then there are the more active definitions. A blessing is something that promotes well-being or an offering of support or sanctioning of something. When you thought about the word blessing, did the first principle come to mind? We Unitarian Universalist congregations promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Using slightly different language, isn't that really saying that every person is a blessing? Have you ever been present to a birth? either a human or an animal birth? Have you held a newborn in your hands? I was present to the birth of two of my sister's children. One of these births was the most amazing thing I've ever witnessed. The other was the most frightening thing I've witnessed. In holding each of those babies, I was overcome with awe, wonder, and joy. As I held my husband's newborn grandchild, I whispered into her ear, "You are loved beyond measure." I felt immeasurably blessed that I got to be a part of these children's lives. They truly are a blessing to me, and I, unbiasedly, of course, believe they are a blessing to the world. Have you felt similarly? Perhaps that blessing becomes harder to recall when years later, that same child is screaming at you, "You've ruined my life." Or the puppy you were so grateful for has eaten your couch. Their blessedness hasn't changed, though. They are still a blessing. You are a blessing simply because you exist. There's nothing that you need to do, to become, or to change about yourself for it to be true. It simply is. You don't receive it from someone else. It already is. Your very existence in and of itself is a blessing. You are a blessing to the world. Tragically, too many people don't know or believe this truth, that they are a blessing to the world. Yet every person started out as that newborn, born with inherent worth. You started out as that newborn, and you have inherent worth. Over time, that simple truth is often forgotten. People fail to see that they are beneficial to the world, maybe for brief periods or for longer periods of time. Some people even come to believe the opposite, that their lives do not have worth, that they are not worthy, that they are a burden. Going down that path leads to destructive behavior, particularly towards oneself. And so I remind you this morning of your inherent worth, that you are a blessing simply because you exist. Whether or not you see the ways that you are beneficial to the world, you are. Your existence benefits the world in ways that we can't see and may not even see for generations. What started out in New York in 1970 as a response to the Stonewall riots has grown exponentially. Now, Pride isn't only an annual parade, instead it's a whole month of events that occur not only in New York, but in cities across the country and even across the globe. This truly is a celebration of blessings, a time to come together to remember, reclaim, and proclaim that their inherent worth, to be grounded in the truth that they are a blessing to the world, proclaiming this truth even amidst social and cultural messages denying that truth. Our seventh principle reminds us that we are part of an interdependent web of existence. We are connected to each other and to our environment in so many intricate and unseeable ways. Unfortunately, those connections often become visible when they're broken. We suddenly see how beneficial something is through its absence. Years ago, I read a piece from a Sand County Almanac by Leonard Aldo Leopold, which describes the devastation of a mountain range. For years, hunters and others killed wolves whenever they were spotted. Since wolves were a natural predator to deer, the idea was that fewer wolves would mean more deer and subsequently more food for the hunters. And indeed, over time, the wolf population was decimated and the deer population grew and grew and grew, which meant a greater number of deer eating the limited vegetation. The balance was disrupted. The once plentiful vegetation was quickly depleted. The land became barren. The deer died of starvation. And a few years ago, I watched a video that illustrated how this pattern can continue and cause riverbanks and beds to change in the landscape. It was astounding to me. A seemingly small, insignificant change in the environment, the overhunting of wolves, has exponential consequences for the interdependent web of existence. Those pieces illustrate well how deeply connected and interdependent we are to all living things, as well as the consequences of severing those connections. The first time I heard the seventh principle so many years ago, it made sense to me on an intuitive level, that we are a part of an interdependent web of existence. Over the years, like in that article, I've gained a greater appreciation for what this connection means to survival. Your existence is critical to the world, probably in very surprising and unaccounted for ways. Do you know that trees communicate and share resources with each other? Recently, I learned a little bit about mother trees and that the trees in the community communicate through their vast root system. At the end of the tree's life, it sends resources to other trees in the community. Now, that's interdependence. As someone who hugs and talks to trees, this awareness that trees communicate with each other brings me great joy. I'm drawn to the magnificence, the strength, the mystery of trees. I feel calmer and more peaceful just to be among them. They promote my spiritual and emotional well-being just by being there. They also promote the physical well-being of the world. The trees provide oxygen necessary to life. They provide homes for multitudes of animals and are used in the manufacturing of homes for humans. They provide shelter, they nourish the soil, they provide important ingredients for things like medicines. And if we look and listen, they provide important information about the health of the environment. All of those benefits just by the very nature of being a tree. Trees are beneficial and promote well-being. They are a blessing just by their existence. They haven't decided to do something to be beneficial. They just are. They're just being trees. And although we know much more than we did in the past, we still don't know all of the benefits. We don't know all of the ways that trees are showing up for each other, for us, for the environment. Yet we do know that they make a difference. We also don't know all the ways being human is beneficial to the world. And yet we do know that every day that you show up, that you exist, makes a difference to someone else. That you are here is a blessing. You are a blessing to the world. Unlike the trees, though, we can decide whether to actively be a blessing. We can engage in blessing the world and offering support and promoting well-being. You are a blessing, and you can choose to be a blessing to others or not. That's the active part of the seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are part. Knowing that we are an integral part of this web of existence, we can choose to support it, to promote the well-being of others, or we can choose to damage the web, to support the natural balance of life, or to destroy it like the hunters killing the wolves. What drew you to Unitarian Universalism? Some describe finding in UU a refuge from the rigid rules and dogmatic beliefs of other religions. Others describe Unitarian Universalism as being an oasis from other religions. I searched for a long time before finding Unitarian Universalism. The openness to differing theologies, the support I felt exploring my own understanding of spirit and spirituality, and the 7 principles were some of the things that drew me. After my long and tiring search, finally finding a religious home felt like a blessing to me. Perhaps some of you would say that Unitarian Universalism is a blessing. My UU experience is beneficial to me, is supportive of my faith journey, and certainly promotes my well-being. Therefore, I choose to try to be a blessing to this faith. It's so easy to tear down, to criticize, and to damage connections. I want to choose to look for places where I can promote health and well-being. It's not easy, and yet I think it is our calling as Unitarian Universalists to promote and affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to respect the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. I am grateful to you. I am grateful for Unitarian Universalism. You are a blessing. Thank you. Amen.